What are the competitive forces, and how can they help us form a solid business strategy? Welcome everybody, my name is Dale Richards, CEO of AppCreative. We're an app development company on the Silicon Slopes of Utah, and we love building software that changes the world. If you want to create apps, scale your technology, transform your business, and disrupt the market, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell. There's this Harvard professor named Michael Porter, who is kind of like, in my opinion, the Adam Smith of today. Brilliant economist, business strategist, golfs with the president to chat about economic policy, the kind of guy who really knows his stuff. So much so that in 1979, he wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review called How Competitive Forces Shape Strategy. In that article, he laid out his 5 competitive forces model, which is still being used today. It describes competitive forces that have always existed, but we hadn't really put a name to them together as a whole until Michael Porter. Michael Porter is the best. Everything he has written that I have read has always been eye-opening. So if you're into business strategy, read Michael Porter. His 5 forces model is a framework that you can use to analyze industry attractiveness, profitability, and the intensity of competition within an industry. The 5 forces are 1. The threat of new entrants. Here we're talking about barriers to entry, including capital requirements. So how much money does it take to enter a particular market? Economies of scale, like how big are the other players in the industry? Will we be able to compete with their ability to serve a large customer base? And brand loyalty, or the emotional tie between our target market and the brands from whom they are currently buying. High barriers scare away new entrants and protect existing competitors. One example that comes to mind is Mint Mobile. You've seen Ryan Reynolds talk about the evils of big wireless. You think about these behemoth mobile carriers like Verizon and T-Mobile. Think about how big they are and Mint Mobile's ability to compete with them. And Ryan even plays to this in his ads, right? Talking about how they're competing with these other companies, but here's how we're different.
We like to do the opposite of what big wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little.
Think about the capital requirements to start a wireless carrier brand and provide service to people across the country. Think about the brand loyalty people have with Verizon or T-Mobile, or the lack of loyalty for that matter. So Mint Mobile was a new entrant and had to address these factors that play into entering that space where Verizon and T-Mobile were already competing. Side note, Mint was actually a partner of T-Mobile running on the T-Mobile network and was acquired by T-Mobile only earlier this year. That's March of 2023. So it'll be interesting to see how the Mint brand continues to operate over time. Okay, next is the bargaining power of buyers. Here we're talking about assessing the influence buyers have on pricing and terms. The stronger the buyers, the more they can dictate terms, impacting industry profitability. Think about wireless prices over the last 10 years. In 2013, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average price for wireless in 2013 was nearly $60 per month. Enter Mint Mobile in 2016, and look what happens to the price. It drops down to the $40 range. People have more options, less expensive options, so that now they have more bargaining power. Okay, on the flip side is the bargaining power of suppliers. Believe it or not, wireless carriers have suppliers to whom they pay fees. For example, cell towers stand on land. Landowners lease their land out to wireless carriers. The price of that lease depends upon the demand for new tower sites, the supplier availability of those sites, the maturity of old lease agreements, and permit and zoning restrictions. Now, I don't have great data that shows the change in cell tower lease price over the last 10 years, so you'll have to just imagine how this affects the profitability of wireless companies. Basically, if suppliers have high bargaining power, they can squeeze industry profitability by raising prices or reducing quality. Okay, we also have the threat of substitute products or services. Substitute products or services are not competing products or services in the same category. Meaning, we're not talking about substituting one carrier for another, like switching from Verizon to T-Mobile. We're talking about alternatives to using that category entirely. So for example, choosing to not have cellular service because you don't need it. You can just use video, audio, or text messaging over a Wi-Fi network. Like you might say, well, I can just message, call, or even video call people on WhatsApp or Instagram. And Wi-Fi is everywhere. So why do I need wireless? So we're assessing the potential for other products or services to meet similar needs. The higher the threat of substitutes, the more challenging it is for industry players to maintain profitability. And the 5th force is intensity of competitive rivalry. What is the level of competition among existing firms? High rivalry often leads to price wars, reducing profitability, and a need for differentiation strategies. We've already talked about Verizon and T-Mobile, so the price wars between those companies are a good example of competitive rivalry. Airline price wars also would be a similar example. Okay, so those are the 5 forces. What we want to do next is use this framework to look at an existing SaaS startup to see what kind of forces they are dealing with and what opportunities they have for profitability in the market. We're going to do that with Mobley, a sales tech startup. So if you want to go on this journey with me, my suggestion would be to start with this interview between me and Mobley co-founder Zach Barney. So that's this video right here. If you want to skip straight to the 5 forces analysis of Mobley, then watch this video.